Hi there, my name's Matthew Davis Morris. I'm a filmmaker and the writer-director of One Night in Ravenwood, and I kind of wanted to go through and give kind of a breakdown of how to make a horror film on such a low budget. We're going to use my latest film, One Night in Ravenwood, as the example, and kind of go through and do kind of maybe like a loose commentary and just kind of go through what it took to make the movie, interesting things about the movie, and things maybe that I would have done differently now, kind of on the other side of it, and kind of hopefully give some inspiration if you're looking to make a movie and shoot on a low budget. Horror films are definitely the way to go for that kind of thing, outside of just shooting two people talking. This movie was definitely a departure from that two-person talking thing. I wanted to go outside of my comfort zone, and along the way I will definitely mention things that I think I would have done differently had I gotten the chance to shoot it again. But we're going to dive into the movie. I have no idea how long this is going to be. Unlike the movie, this is not scripted, but we're going to give it a go. I hope there's some value out of this. I don't have work today, and I figured, what the hell? So here we go. Let's watch and break down One Night in Ravenwood. All right, so jumping into the movie, we got the AirPod in. I'll be showing the movie right over here and starting and stopping as much or as little as possible. Let's get into it. So, just going right into it, the kind of crawl that you're seeing in here, originally not in the script, and usually when it comes to film festivals, this is not something that anybody recommends, which I was very aware of, but I figured that we needed a little bit more background to go into the world. There's, of course, all of our wonderful stars, that whole cast of 6, that were all first choices. I'm very honored and grateful to have them in the movie. And these shots, coming right up right there, is them running in close-ups. I remember writing into the script, in order to shoot this, they're just standing still. They're just moving back and forth like this. So, it's meant to be stylized and meant to be kind of over the top, so we were kind of able, I think, to get away with some stuff. This whole little bit between John and Ashley was shot on the second day later, kind of out of sync with the rest of the movie. When you're shooting something small, I highly recommend watching. I'm going to pause right here as John is just hanging out. When shooting a movie, low-budget movie, horror movie, especially in this case when you're dealing with like practical blood elements and all this other stuff, you typically, as we did here, we didn't have other costumes. We didn't have multiple versions, so we kind of just had to run with the ones that we had. So we shot in sequence, basically the entire way. This scene right here between John and Ashley is really the only thing that wasn't shot in sequence from what I can remember. So I mean, I would recommend, if you're doing a 2-day shoot, 3-day shoot, 1-day shoot, and you have the ability to shoot in sequence, which for those of you maybe who are not aware, in sequence means in the order, kind of chronologically as the movie. You're not shooting out of order. I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're new to directing and new to filmmaking. It kind of just makes kind of condensing everything and being able to kind of translate it into a daily shoot as easy as possible. But going back into the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, I wonder what's going to happen to John. If you have seen the movie, I mean, I think we all have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen to John in this. It is a horror movie after all. Here's this little way and any kind of light that you should see, I should say. We have a little title card. We go in here. Any light that you see coming from the creature is a flashlight. Unless it is a close-up that you'll see later on of the creature. Those are visual effects. But any time that you're seeing like kind of the Evil Dead shot, or you're seeing him far away, it's just literally just a flashlight in the lens. And then from here, we go into a one take. Little note about this is we lost all of the audio from this take. So everything that you see here up until this whole scene kind of ends is ADR, which means that it's recorded after the fact. I had to get all the actors back and go in, and it was a very meticulous process, but it was the best take.
Don't worry, I can figure this out. Everyone just stay put while I think of a plan.
Oh, great, Rambo.
The idea with this one take, I should say, is because there's a lot of information that's coming that you're kind of learning, and we didn't want the movie to just completely stop. So shooting it in one kind of keeps the momentum going, both, in a very literal way, and taking inspiration from obviously the king of the one take is Steven Spielberg, is trying to have every time we move the camera to feel like a different setup. So like right here, as Abel moves in, who plays Todd, we move into a two shot of the two of them, while still allowing kind of all the actors to work as background. Like this two shot right here, and then we have Gabe, who plays Eddie, come up, and then we kind of have the three of them. And this could be its own setup. And the idea is that you just don't want to move the camera wildly. You want everything to be motivated, which I'd like to think is what we did here. Very grateful for this cast. Everybody committed very, very heavily.
Are you shitting me?
Everything here is still ADR. None of this is on the day.
What the hell do you want to do?
Survive, and God knows that's not going to be possible if I listen to you.
The static in the back, I should say, is a YouTube loop. If you look very closely, sometimes we forgot to turn the TV back on. Like right there.
Just shut up!
At this point now, the ADR is done.
We have to be better than this. I saw what that thing did to John, and we all know there's a heck of a lot more.
Something to note as well, we shot in 4K during this, and you'll see a lot of digital push-ins, hopefully some looking less digital than others. The idea was, we had the ability to shoot
Sean?
And kind of change things up. This push-in right here is all digital. We kind of go back to a long take. I started my love of movies as an actor and a lot in theater, and so I really like watching the actors be able to play out the scene. I don't like the crazy cuts all the time, especially when people are just talking to each other. I feel like a lot of at least the performers that I've gotten the luxury to work with, have an inherent pacing to themselves, and you can kind of just let them play. I want to point out Nick, who plays Andy in the corner there. I told him to give his best Clint Eastwood stare, and he's nailing it. He is crushing it.
If that's John, it's you.
So yeah, we're still in this dialogue portion. The movie is very much... I looking back, if I could, I maybe would sparse it out a little bit better.
Where was our first time?
I should also note in the script, kind of looking at how movies evolve, John and Ashley were not a couple. In the original draft, everybody here, they were just a group of strangers who didn't know each other. I got some very productive notes. When it comes... I'm actually going to pause the movie right here real quick. Right on Laura Quinn playing Ashley right there. When you're going through the writing process or on the day or what have you, it can be hard, especially when you've worked as long as... Like, I worked on this movie for like almost 4 years. COVID had a lot to do with that, but still, when you work on a movie for a certain amount of time, you tend to get... It starts to feel personal when people give you notes. It's important to remember that the people that you... Or try to surround yourself with people that are doing it for the best possible outcome, people that you trust. I felt very lucky to have a cast and crew that I trusted, and I was lucky enough to have them trust me. And in that process, if you're the filmmaker, you have your own vision, and that's great, but you also need to recognize that not every instinct you have is going to be great. I wanted the chaos of everything and for all the characters to be complete strangers originally, and for a few drafts that was the case. And I had one of my friends kind of look to me and say, hey man, like, we can't connect to any of these people because there's no central relationship really. Todd and Margot were married or engaged, but they are at odds the entire time, so there's no real emotional center. It's clear that there is a relationship there that probably shouldn't be. Had I not listened to that note to find some kind of core for the movie, I think the movie would be worse off, and I don't think it would be as good. And being able to kind of center the relationship around Ashley and John, or the creature, I think hopefully the idea was that it elevated it and allowed you to connect to Ashley a little bit more and feel a little heartbroken or just a little empathetic towards her situation, as she says later in the movie that this is the night that they really have started to fall in love. It's the first time that he says that he loves her, which was not in the original draft. So yeah, long story short, notes are always important to listen to, whether you agree with them or not. Take them into account, because it will a bad note can either breed a good idea, or a great note will make the movie 1,000 times better than you even imagined that it could be. Let's get back into the movie. I'll continue to kind of ramble and talk through all this.
What are you doing? Just let me in.
The wonderful Lance Reyes playing
Vacation,
John.
When did you tell
He was
me
actually
about
the man that got me into horror movies, so I wanted to make him the creature and make him the bad guy. He sells this kind of like pretending to be connected to her, and obviously I had no idea what she's talking about.
Tonight was the first time you told me you loved me.
Yeah, and that line was nowhere to be found in the original draft. All digital push in, digital camera. This was a locked off shot. It's completely steady when we first shot it.
I'm sorry, Ash.
Like I mentioned, this light on Abel and all them is all literally, and Laura is just a flashlight. It's just a big light that we're shining on them. And Lance is through here. He has a headlamp strapped to his head. We tried a couple different rigs. We had like little, like essentially glasses with 2 individual lights and all this other stuff, and we realized that genuinely just having a headlamp on his head looked better. Yeah, this light here, all practical. This is very much, as you can tell, very much inspired by 80s horror. So as you can tell, this shot right here is almost an exact recreation of the Thing poster. I'm a very subtle filmmaker. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, I want to give a lot of love to this cast. They all knew the kind of movie that they were in, and I'm very, very grateful that they did, because sometimes that can cause some issue, but
We can't just sit
this
here.
little bit with Andy and Eddie is great.
Someone has to do something.
Don't.
This thing is a disease.
This line here is a line from Cobra, which is a movie with Sylvester Stallone. I'm actually gonna
His fucking face!
pause right here before we get into the first death. I mentioned earlier in the movie that, Margot says Rambo is going to save us. And he says, "You're goddamn right he is." I wanted him to quote Stallone, but I felt like it would be too easy to see Rambo. I think he's really gone in there, so he's watched the movie Cobra, and he sees himself as all of these Stallone figures, no matter how toxic and problematic that is. That's kind of his character. And Nick does a great job leaning into that. So let's get into Nick's kind of big scene that he sells. A thing I should actually note before doing this, and we kind of did this with John's death and the kind of the cold open of the movie, is trying to be creative in how you shoot it, and not just avoiding it for budget reasons, which there are plenty in this movie. It's trying to make sure that those still feel motivated, that it's not just a matter of like, oh, okay, clearly they didn't have the money to shoot this, so we're going to cut around it and all this other stuff, which again is there and can probably be noticed in some parts. But the more that you can motivate the choices that you're making as a filmmaker, the better the outcome, the better the result, or hopefully better the result. So in this scene, for example, when the creature is attacking Andy, we cut to Ashley and Eddie, or Gabe and Laura, a lot. And that's because, we don't really have the money to do all the crazy like bludgeoning shots. There's one shot in there that kind of shows Nick kind of reacting to the bat and everything. But, you know, we wanted to instead make it more about these characters experiencing it for the first time, and you're experiencing it with them. And instead of watching it, you're kind of just hearing the horror behind you, was the idea. Hopefully that, you know, comes across. But it's important to know that, you know, every choice, try to have some kind of thought in. Even if you're just like, it's cool to do it this way, do it. Especially when you're making a horror movie. Like, cool outrules like any logic, in my opinion. So we'll jump back into kind of Nick's big scene. Again, all these eyes stuff is all visual effects, but the light on Nick's face is a kind of flashlight. And then see, we cut right away from Nick. I should note, the creature swinging the bat, that shot was too tight. So someone else is swinging the bat, like right here. That is not Lance holding the bat in any way. Again, some more digital zooms. I'll get into kind of the practical blood spurts a little bit later, because it is a very easy trick, as I'm sure some people know. Yeah, again, the idea was that everything's kind of unseen as little as possible. Like the characters don't really see a lot. We kind of cut to the reaction of the creature's first kill, but you're just watching them. It's focused on them, and the light being essentially having, you know, amplifying the fact that it's the creature's right around the corner, and when it moves away, they're seemingly safe.
Would you stop knocking shit over? Ugh. Fucking dumbass.
Abel and Emily, who played Todd and Margot, were one of the first people that I thought of, and they nail it. I did a play with them a few years before this, and they're wonderful people. I'm very happy that they did this. It was very weird to direct them, because I was directed by them before.
Feels like you're just going to explode. And I have to tell you, Todd, it's pretty shitty for me to have to deal with you like this all the time. You've always been like this. Ever since high school.
There's a small little digital push in right here when he says, shut the fuck up.
Stop being such a fucking...
Right, right there, which I think actually helps. You don't really notice it, but you can feel it.
No, I'm not gonna quiet down. Okay?
And we're gonna get to the biggest kind of digital effects moment of the movie.
Jesus, Margot, those books.
To which I will say again, if you don't have a lot of resources and a lot of money, have the point be that the visual effects are quick. This decapitation is a quick cut. You know, we're out of it. We just get the information. We see what happened, why it happened, and then we're away from it. Because now the scene is focused on Margot being like, oh shit, I guess it's my turn. So all that blood is fake, or digital. It's all fake, obviously. We move in here. They've been able to escape the house. We're back into the woods. Note to self, night shoots are hard. I might not recommend night shoots for your first couple films. Just, you know, whatever's easiest, I would recommend. And then once you get comfortable with it, then you can start to maybe challenge yourself and stuff like that. We're getting a lot of mileage out of this flashlight.
You need to run.
No, Eddie, no. We have to stick together.
I'm sorry.
Here comes what might be my favorite shot of the movie, is the creature right here. It's the practical light with the digital eyes. And it looks really integrated, and I'm really grateful for our effects team for doing that.
Need to survive. So run.
Gabe and Lance, who play Eddie and John, nail this fight. We did not have a lot of time to do this. We didn't have a lot of time to choreograph it, and they sell the hell out of it. If you notice too quickly, that flashlight that we talk about, because we run on such a low budget, sometimes you forget to do things. So like the flashlight wasn't there, and now it's here. Gabe acting his heart out, and Lance being absolutely terrifying. Poor guy's covered in makeup and like cold prosthetic blood. And with the blood spurts, actually, I'll hold off. We'll wait for the big thing. In this scene, little note, if you need to do if you're doing a horror movie and you need like human body parts, ground beef is what Lance has in his hands right there where he's shaking his hands. It's ground beef. And it worked out pretty well. It was kind of gross.
You need to fucking listen to me.
That bat on Lance's coverage is not real. Now, with the blood spurting. In this scene, Laura is attacking a body pillow. Obviously, she's not going to be attacking the actual actor. How we did all these blood spurts that you've seen kind of throughout the movie, and in this scene, it is, I'm not joking, it is a $10, like, pump squirt gun from Target that we've just put some fake blood in, and Connor, our effects supervisor, is sitting there on the side, literally just like, shooting it out. And it works really well. I am actually really happy with how it turned out. I think if I was to honor Sam Raimi more, which is very clear that this is what this is attempting to do, I probably would have done more blood, but we did not have the money to do it, which is kind of a bummer. So hopefully maybe for the next one we do. Yeah. Little note, actually, the score that you're hearing in the background, original score by the wonderful Glenn Irish, recorded on vintage 80s synth machines. When he told me he had those, he had the job. He knew that he had to be the guy to do it. And I think I'm very grateful for the score. Now, it obviously being a horror movie, can't have the best of endings. I will say, this bat, when you see that move like it just did, not planned. No one's knocking that. Laura accidentally, I think, knocked it with her arm. And at first I was like, oh my God, we're going to do it again. But the framing of it, it was like a nice little serendipity. And the logo's not facing the camera, which is extremely important. Now, the ending that you just saw, there were a couple different endings. I'll say this as the credits go through. While you watch kind of all the wonderful people that worked on the movie. There were a couple different endings that we were looking at. A couple got scrapped, but there were specifically two. And I figured for the festival run, I did not put in this mid-credit scene that you're about to see. But for the official film that we were going to put out on YouTube and stuff, we threw it in there. Because I didn't want to get rid of both of the endings. I didn't know which one to have. I figured the one that you do see as the actual official ending is really the more effective one. And then we kind of throw in a little fun bit right here, which was shot months later. You can see the fake blood on Laura's dress is very dried, which in the movie, let's say she was out for a little bit. And the creature goes off into the night for potentially a sequel, which who knows if that'll happen. I'd love to make a sequel, to be honest. This was originally a feature film. I had written like a full feature version of this and realized that I couldn't make it. There was no way to make it in the way that I wanted to. So I figured, you know what, let's try something different. And I'll say this as the kind of the credits are rolling. My biggest tip for any young filmmaker or new filmmaker, just because an idea is too expensive to pull off the way that you've initially designed it doesn't mean that it'll never be able to be possible. This movie was a really big, large scope 80s throwback horror feature, and I really wanted to tell the story and I wanted to get this idea onto the screen as much as possible. And with the resources that I had, I figured it would be better to make it a short, almost as like a proof of concept. And the film that you watch, the film that we put out, is meant to be kind of an outside. The feature is called One Night in Ravenwood. This was originally called One Night Outside Ravenwood. Very dumb. Because it literally took place outside of the events of the main feature. My hope is that it worked out this way. It's definitely my intent, and I think important when making a movie is trying to get as creative as possible. I was like, okay, well, I can't do this huge high school. The movie took place in a big school, and I was like, well, I can't do that. But my girlfriend, Laura Quinn, who wonderfully plays the role of Ashley, she has a house that kind of looks like a cabin, so it might be cool to actually shoot it there, especially in reference to Sam Raimi and all that stuff and those movies of the 80s, Friday the 13th, Camp Crystal Lake, all that stuff. and shoot it there. And we'll shoot it very, essentially in just 2 locations. It's the woods and the house, and that's it. And because of that, I was able to work with a bigger cast and have, 6 people. The largest cast that I had before this was 2. So it's a lot bigger. It's the biggest crew that we had. The effects I wish I had more time to work on them or more resources to put into them. At the end of the day, done is better than perfect. And with every movie, you're going to wish you could have done things differently. I wish I would have had more practical blood on set. I wish we could have done more creative work with the deaths. As you see, they're kind of all cutaways. We tried to adjust the circumstances of it and adjust the way we cut away so that it didn't feel as obvious that that's what we were doing. But that is what we were doing. We were hiding the deaths because we don't have the resources to show it fully. This has kind of been the commentary. I hope that you guys got some value out of this. If there's any other questions, comment. I'll be happy to respond. I have no idea how many people are going to watch this. Very excited to see what comes next. If people want to see a One Night in Ravenwood 2, let me know. If there's any returning viewers, I would happily make that movie. And if there's anybody who would be willing to invest into a One Night in Ravenwood feature film, I would happily do that as well. If there's one final piece of advice I can give a writer, director, filmmaker, just in general, going into a film, hire people more talented than you. I'm very lucky that all the people that were here are incredibly talented and incredibly giving. And I feel honored to have worked with them. It's much better to be the student in a room full of, masters than to play with your ego and try to pretend like you're the smartest person in the room, because that's a silly thing to do, especially when you're working with, in this case, whatever it was, almost 20 people. They had a lot more ideas to bring to the table than maybe I did, and I'm very lucky because it made the movie better. But I hope you like this video. This is going to be my 3rd time trying to end the video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. My name is Matthew Davis Morris. If you're new, subscribe. I will link One Night in Ravenwood and kind of the other behind the scenes there. If you want to watch the first short film that I have on this channel, Closing Night, it's also there. I'd recommend that one. That one is the 2 people talking in a room like we talked about at the beginning of the movie, or beginning of this video, excuse me. I hope you liked the movie, and I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Matthew Davis Morris, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys in the future. You always think the hat looks good, and then you look at it again and you completely just second guess every decision you've made about the hat. We're going to say that works.